I'm going to speak with you today about how we build meaningful and impactful trail networks in every community in America. How we build a trail network together. Please indulge me by closing your eyes. Really close your eyes. Imagine that you're out on the trail, and I want you to tap into the freedom that you feel when you're out there. The breeze delicately pushing on your back as you stroll, the whoosh of the wind as you cut through the air on your bike. You're comfortable and happy and at ease. You're feeling overwhelming gratitude that you have access to this amazing piece of infrastructure. You're enjoying every moment, and you're not stressed about your next move because you're taking most of this particular journey on a series of trails, a trail network. This journey is priceless. Please open your eyes. You, we, all of us in the Trails movement made this feeling possible. You made it possible through all of your hard work in creating trails. So I want you to keep this good feeling in mind, and I'm going to talk about what's possible with trails and trail networks. We all know that trails play a critical role in our world, especially as people are placing a higher priority on safe places to walk and bike. We know that trails are increasingly considered an essential element of a healthy community and an improved quality of life. We know that this cultural change means that trails and interconnected trail networks have become a competitive advantage for communities all across the country, and that they draw high-quality employers, economic growth, and tourism. How do we know this? When I asked our project manager, Eva Garcia, and our board member, Rose Gowan, how they see the impact of trails playing out of their community of the Lower Rio Grande Valley of Texas, they shared the following. I think about the homeless man who earned a bike at the Bike Barn's Earn a Bike program. When he completed his hours, I stopped seeing him around until I ran into him at a restaurant. He was working as a server. He stopped by my table and told me with a bright smile that he was using the bike he had earned to get to his job every day, and he had found a roommate and a place to live. I also think about Buena Vida, our choice neighborhood, which is a low-income neighborhood, where community input showed that the number one thing the community wanted was connections to the greater Trails network. I think about working in our community development sessions to develop the Belden Trail. We heard from little houses at the end of the street that they would never let their children go out and play because there was always people running their cars up and down the road and occasionally hitting fences, and people did not feel safe. These families were so thrilled that this trail would be coming into their community because they knew it would make a safe place for their children to play. And I think about when we broke ground on those trails and the media was there, all these moms came out and we were wondering why. And they said it was because they were just so looking forward to this because they knew what it would mean to their families. We also know that trails matter to our physical safety. Sophie Harris-Vorhoff, Executive Director of Friends of the Lafitte Greenway in New Orleans, recently shared this story, this incredible story of survival, and she allowed me to share a little bit of it with you today. 1 month ago, we celebrated the inaugural Hike Fest. Our community was still reeling. 3 weeks prior, Nellie, our program director, and I narrowly survived a horrific accident on Esplanade Avenue that took 2 of our dearest friends' lives. For me, that day at the Hike Fest, under the crisp sunshine, surrounded by dancing and laughing children, was a crystallization of the goodness of life. And it began to fill a space in my chest that felt hollow. At the Greenway, we have worked together to build a community and a place that connects us. Nellie and I have shared our awe. We never anticipated that we would personally need to draw so heavily upon it. And yet this Greenway community stepped in with 1,000 acts of goodness to support our healing, to produce the Hike Fest, and to carry us through. She continues, the crash has underscored the importance of our work, building safe spaces and building community. The Greenway is the backbone of New Orleans' bike network. We must continue to expand and connect the network of bikeways protected from car traffic. We must continue to build this community that supports, heals, and shows us the beauty in life. And a story of mental and emotional health from Rachel in Milwaukee. Living so near to the trails in South Milwaukee has improved my quality of life immensely. As someone who's long dealt with anxiety and depression, having access to nature and a means to quiet the mind through exercise is so important. The trails along the lake have provided me with the literal healing pathways I need to keep life's overwhelm in check. As a neurodiverse autistic person diagnosed with fibromyalgia, keeping my stress levels in check is especially important. If not managed well, stress can manifest as a flare, which brings with it a whole host of symptomology and issues physical, mental, and emotional. The simple act of hopping on my bike or lacing up my shoes and hitting the trail along Lake Michigan brings with it a sense of relief. It's a deep breath and some much needed space for my physical body and for my mind. From there, it's about clearing the cache, physically and mentally, connecting with nature and my own body once more after a disembodied day spent sitting at a computer. The 1-2 punch of nature and physical activity always helps me to ground myself, quiet the mind, and keep things in check and in perspective. Trails are life-giving pathways in a world that's increasingly busy, overwhelmed, disconnected, and disembodied. These stories alone show us that the incredible progress that the Trails movement, our movement, has had on all of us. This is thanks to all of us. But there's so much more work ahead of us. The work ahead of us is to shift from seeing trails as things that are nice to have to community and civic assets that we demand, that we have to have as a necessity in our communities. And this is thanks to the visionaries like President Johnson and the National Trails Act. This is thanks to the visionaries who founded my organization, Rails-to-Trails Conservancy, David Burwell and Peter Harnick, who not only had the genius to see in front of them the opportunity of trails and rail trails and multi-use trails, but who's had the prescience to see what it could become decades later, and we're all doing that work now. This leads us to an amazing moment. Today, there are 34,000 miles of multi-use trails on the ground in this country, and millions of people who are using them and loving them. What an amazing accomplishment. In 8 diverse areas of the country, through our TrailNation program, RTC is investing in projects that show what's possible when these amazing civic assets, trails, are seamlessly integrated into the communities they serve, providing low-stress, high-quality, and environmentally friendly transportation and recreation. Together, they represent over 6,000 miles of interconnected trails and are connecting tens of thousands of Americans. In some cases, filling just a few trail gaps could improve mobility for hundreds of thousands of people in underserved neighborhoods. In other cases, the resulting safe walking and biking connections could reduce vehicle miles traveled by millions of miles over time and serve as a boon for economic development. From this work, we've begun to learn that when trail connections are made, usage increases by as much as 80%. 80%. And we're learning that the ripple effect from these connections can increase usage across the entire trail network by as much as 15%. Think about those numbers. And as these projects continue to demonstrate the impact that trails have on our health, mobility, social equity, and the environment, They will serve as replicable role models for communities across the country. And we know many more places, and many of you are doing this extremely important work, and we've been privileged to learn from you and share in this important work together. One of the best things about trails and trail networks is their ability to act as a conduit for achieving multiple goals to improve the places we live, whether it's regional economic development, civic engagement and volunteerism, connecting neighborhoods once intentionally segregated by roads and highways, protecting water quality, and so much more. Trail networks offer an integrated and inspirational way to envision the future of our communities and how we can connect with each other in a time when there is so much disconnection and so much pain. As we continue to forge ahead in this work, we want to continue to grow and integrate the Trails movement with all of you. And we want to bring those who aren't at the table yet there, and those who don't even have a seat at the table there. We want to work with you to make this movement more diverse, more equitable, from the inside out. We want to work with you to develop creative ways to fund and finance trails and trail networks, as well as the all too critical maintenance of aging trails. And we want to work together to elevate trails, walking, and biking into the national conversation and the American lexicon. We want to continue to work step by step beside you to develop thoughtful and intentional trail networks that improve quality of life, because we know how much it matters to people and how much this work could shift the future of the American landscape for the better. We want to be a resource to you, and as we continue to develop best practices and lessons learned, we hope to continue to engage with all of you and to learn from you. We want to know your lessons learned and what others are doing from this critical work. We hope you'll join us in pursuing this work together so that we can build a trail nation. Thank you.